Welcome to another episode, actually, episode number 19 of our now rebranded From the Greenhorn podcast to Developing Dads podcast. So we have a very special guest on today. He is a bit of a geezer from the southeast of London. We met each other like about 12 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that.
You can do the whole podcast like this, yeah?
I could try. I'm actually quite keen. I'd be quite keen to find out if Neil can actually do a southeast London accent. I think that would be a good start to the podcast.
I'm not doing accents ever.
He'll do it at the end, so it's like the cliffhanger, so they have to listen to it all the way through just for Neil's one-liner that he's going to build up the courage to deliver.
Like what should he? What should he practice? It's a Cockney, bit of Cockney.
Should be like apple and pears. Just something simple. Do you know what I mean? Little bit of slang.
So we have that little bit of a nugget for anyone who's going to be listening to this podcast all the way through to the end. Neil will attempt to do a southeast London accent and use apple and pears as his thing. So Neil, whatever you need to do to practice, mute yourself or whatever else, we'll get to that.
Bonus points if he actually knows what it means.
That would be good as well. Okay.
Google can help me.
Well, I'm not sure he's allowed to do that, but anyway, we do have a very special guest on our Developing Dads podcast. He is a dad himself. One of the reasons why we've invited him on, not just because he's got good looks. So if you're watching on the YouTube channel, he has a head of hair that I am very jealous of, and he always wants to remind me of it, of how good it is. He is the one and only Luke Johson. He has a fitness business, has been in the fitness business for quite some time. We originally met, I believe we met at Body Power about 10 years ago. We've become very good friends. We've conversed on all sorts of entrepreneur things. I worked for Luke for a little while, helping with these video side of things. But we parted ways, pleasantly, I hope. He's on my podcast, so hopefully he doesn't say anything nasty about me and I don't say anything nasty about him. But Luke, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, gents. I was going to say lads. Go on, lads. Thanks for having me, lads.
Don't think you can say that anymore. We can't have a lad. Like, this can't be some sort of, male empowerment podcast. This is about dads and families and health, wealth, and happiness.
Thanks for joining us, team. Day. Just don't be like Barcelona. This is not Barcelona.
What's Barcelona? Are you talking about my stag do that you came on? Is that what you're chatting about?
Yeah, and I was complaining the whole time because I'm like, Gordon, I've put on so much weight. I'm now going to have to go around Barcelona just to find some clothes because nothing fits me. And then I think I ended up with the Pablo Escobar, Pablo Escobar shirt.
That's right. I think this is how Neil. So I've obviously known Luke for going 10 years or something, but Neil's met him a few times through various friend circles. But Neil was also my best man, so he organised the stag do, and Luke Johson came along and he barely had any clothes, so we had to go to Zara and stock him up in Barcelona, which was quite the affair. But this isn't the stag do podcast.
No, let's get off of that.
This is not that.
It won't be an episode.
This won't be an episode where, like I've mentioned already before, me and Luke know each other through the fitness industry. He does have his own business, so I'm sure he can bestow some interesting knowledge based around being a dad and an entrepreneur and running his own business. But let's start like in the early days of you becoming a dad. You and Neil were both quite young in relative stakes, if you will, having a kid. But How do you sort of reflect back on that? How old were you in your early 20s or something like that when you first had a kid?
I was 25, 26. Yeah, I would have been, just turned 26, I think. So
it's not that young.
Nah, when I was younger, I actually, stupidly, for some reason, I was like, I want to be a dad by the time I'm like 23. I want to be one of those young dads. And that was my sort I knew I always wanted to be a dad without having the information I have now, which may have swayed that. But yeah, originally I was like, I want to be a young dad. I didn't want to be one of those old dads at the school. It was like, is that your granddad? No, it's my dad. It's my dad. But yeah, 26. So I suppose Jamie told me she was pregnant via WhatsApp.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It wasn't even a voice message. I think it was just I'm pregnant, and then like a little picture to follow. I have to like scroll back through like the whole conversation and find it. So that
hold on. So Jamie's obviously your girlfriend, partner. Life partner. Let's call it that. You found out you were pregnant via a WhatsApp message. Did she send you like a picture and just went, "Well, this happened this morning"?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I just remember getting a WhatsApp and just being like, "Okay, probably going to ring you right now." So based on that information, you can tell that Lenny, my oldest, who's coming up to 10, wasn't planned. So yeah, it was a little bit of a shock, and she didn't want really to have the baby because Jamie's, well, I'm 36, so she's 5 years younger than me. So she was on her final year of university. So she was pregnant throughout the second year. Then she had Lenny, and then it was the option of, do I finish the third year? She didn't actually finish the third year. She stopped on 2 years, so it's like a foundation degree rather than a full degree. So she did qualify, but it just wasn't the full honours. So yeah, that was I just remember thinking, oh crap, this wasn't planned. And I was still living at home with mummy and daddy, and I had a fairly secure job. I was a college lecturer at the time, so it's like, oh, education is a secure job, and I was probably getting £33,000 per year. And I think if I stayed in that role, could have got up to maybe like £36,000, which wasn't bad when you're thinking I started doing that when I was 23 years of age, so it wasn't a bad salary as such. And that's when I was like, okay, I didn't have any debt. I wasn't on the breadline. There wasn't none of the like, oh, struggle. I was still living at home with mummy and dad. I was like, oh crap, I need to actually be a little bit more serious now. And that my thing.
What does that feel like? Because I think Neil can probably chip in a little bit in this as well. Where when you don't have a kid, I felt responsible, to a degree, but largely for myself and my own self-interests. And Laura came along, and her interests are important to me. But there's still that, like, you're still like, yeah, this is largely about me and what I want and how I want to pursue things. Like, you're 26, you didn't plan this. Neil, I think, planned it. We'll maybe get into that as well. I have no idea if you just got hoodwinked into a honeymoon baby or not. But, and for me, it's like, it struck me really hard how much I now, like, work for the family, right, rather than for myself. So being 26 and it was unplanned and you didn't, like, kind of have this sort of trajectory and you're like, I'm going to do this thing. What did that feel like? Was that really nervous? Were you scared? Were you like, I'm going to make this work? Like, what was going through your mind?
It was a catalyst, I think. I think if she didn't fall pregnant, I wouldn't probably be where I am today, in all honesty. Because that was my thing, was like, I've now got another human being that I'm bringing into this world, and I need to save up some money to then be able to move out living with mummy and daddy. So that's when I started online coaching in 2012. Because I was getting paid my salary, but I was never good with my money. I didn't have any savings. I had nothing. So I started doing, at the time, I think it was Luke Hazlitt and maybe the strength guys that I knew that was doing online coaching. And some of them obviously wasn't doing it how you would deem online coaching should be for the prices that I was charging. And I managed to save £16,000 to £17,000 in that 9-month period. And it wasn't full just from the online coaching. It was me actually saving money this time and making money for online coaching. And at that time, GG, I was like, hey, maybe I want to, like, I know you've had Scott Baptiste on. And I remember seeing Scott on like Men's Fitness and going, hey, he ain't got that great of a body. Yeah, he's an all right looking bloke. Like, if Scott can do it, I can do it. So then my thing with the kid as well, I wasn't in bad shape considering what I am now. And I used that as I'm now going to get lean before the child, because I knew that it was going to be extremely hard once you have this kid that's dependent on you to be as selfish as you were when you didn't have a child, to then go to the gym when you want, cook what you want, and do what you want when you want. There was no responsibility. So that was, I started getting shredded. And then I had a before and after photo, because I'm half Greek, so I'm fairly hairy. I had a lemon ice cream, and then I had my sister's boyfriend, who's now a husband. He did some photography. So I remember I dieted like an absolute bro it was a 10-week period between the photos, but it's probably only like 4 to 5 weeks, just dieting, like can't have any carbs for breakfast, can't have carbs at night, boiled eggs, walnuts, paprika and all of that, and got some really good results. Then I obviously shaved or got my chest waxed. I then used a crap load of Johnson's baby oil and did about 300 push-ups in my sister's flat. And then he took some professional photos. So at the time I was on Twitter, so I just basically put up on Twitter and on my personal Facebook, me with a lemon ice cream, hairy chest, versus me 10 weeks later, like no chest hair, a load of baby oil, good lighting. Because I'm looking now and I'm like, my lighting's crap, I need to turn the light on for the lamp. And then I put that up on Facebook and I was like, I'm looking for, I think, 8 people that want to do body transformations. It's £100 for 8 weeks. And I think I took on, it was over 8 or 10, and most of them were just school friends. And that's when my side business, because I knew I was working 40 hours a week. So during that period, for 9 to 10 months, maybe longer, I was working 80 hours a week, doing some in person before I started working in a college, boot camp on a Saturday, and online coaching.
Do you think that if you hadn't had, because you kind of mentioned just before you said this, you know, do you think that message, that WhatsApp message, ultimately drove you to sort of push yourself a bit further outside of, say, that, because, you know, lecturing is probably quite a relatively comfortable job. You start at a certain time, right?
Work.
And that's not a bad thing. Like, it's not bad to have a nice, comfortable life, and you go out the weekends and you see your mates and you do all those kind of things, and your salary, like you say, was fine. But do you really think that there was a light switch moment? You were like, I've got to provide. I've got to be a dad. Like, I've got to make sure that this is going to work. Is that? Yeah. Is that it?
I remember always looking back at the time, like Paul Mort, and he had this thing where it always resonated with me. He said he had a job disguised as a business because he got into a car accident, and the only way he actually could make money is if he actually turned up and trained people in person. And for me, it was like, right, it was a catalyst. I've always said from a young age, I've not been put on this earth to be content with just being average. And as I say, I don't think I'm anything special at all, but I've always had that belief. I'm a very competitive individual. So for me, it's like, if I got one life, I might as well go at it and try and do big things and help my family. And at the time, it's still, when I say family, like my mum and dad, siblings, close, like my actual close family as well, my kids. So I feel like it was a catalyst that made the switch quicker. But I always felt like I would have then gone on to something, probably staying within fitness. It would have just been maybe 2 to 3, 5 years later. So I feel like it just sped up that process.
That's fair. And you know, I imagine that, I'm curious about Neil, because I don't think I've ever asked him this, in the terms of how did you plan children? Did you have a conversation with Rebecca, and when you found out you were pregnant, did your attitude to things change? Did you, like, what happened?
Yeah, we definitely planned it. We definitely said after the wedding there'll be a baby. So was it a honeymoon baby? Don't know. It was pretty soon after. But in terms of our thought process, we never sat down and thought, right, we need to have X amount of money in the bank. We need to have certain kind of jobs. We need to have a certain level of income coming in. We need to be in a certain house. I think if you do that level of planning, will you ever have a baby? I don't know. Who are you waving to?
I did. That's how I planned it.
Oh.
Not many people do, though, Gigi. I feel like even then there's no perfect time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
No, there's not, but there are better times.
Oh, 100%.
No, I agree. But if you're, I don't know, married, you've maybe got enough money for a deposit for a house, you know, well, I think we had an offer. We'd put money down on the place we bought. It was a new build. So yeah, relatively planned in terms of we had a house to go to and stuff. But yeah, apart from that, and my attitude to work, I had a pretty secure job. So I was in a good place at 23. I had my first child. I love. So Luke, we've got notes that Gordon and I write down things, and Gordon said Luke had a kid when he was super young.
I thought he was super young. Like, the way he talked about it was
because I'm just
fresh
fresh-faced. Do you know what I mean? Nah,
must have been. But yeah,
I didn't lose my virginity until like just before 19. There you go. But
Wow. The funny thing about this,
exclusive on the podcast.
that's the funny thing about this podcast. Like I proposed this podcast to Neil just off the back of the fact that I wanted to, solidify and immortalize, if you will, these conversations between my little brother. So now what we have is we've got something that tells Len, Lyra, and what's
Lincoln.
one called? Lincoln tells them when Daddy lost his virginity.
Have you got three now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick. I couldn't beat you with twins. You know what I mean? I didn't want to. I'm good, but I'm not that good.
I can't believe you went for three voluntarily.
Yeah, like I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, so Neil, yeah, this is one of my questions I've literally written down. Is like Neil didn't have a choice in having three, and he kind of said to me before that he would have probably just had two if it was just two. I think you said, Neil, that Rebecca wanted sort of 3 or 4 potentially, but you were just like, nah, two's enough, and I'm done. But it ended up being 3. So I'm really curious, Luke, because Olivia, my daughter, I love her to bits, and when I see her, it's amazing. And you both will know this, having daughters yourselves. Not that sons are not great, but daughters are probably better.
You can't really say that because you don't have a son. So have a son, and then you can actually compare.
Yeah, we'll see. But equally, like I've always said, I wanted 2, but having one just makes you think: do I want 2? But I'm curious about Luke. You've intentionally gone, hey, I want 3. I'm having another one. So you got 3, and how did you come to that conclusion? And how's it been? I guess is my next question after that.
I don't know, because I feel like my life's easier than Neil's because he had 2 in one go. I actually me and Jamie were speaking yesterday. I was like, I'm going to be on a podcast tomorrow of like Gordon and Neil. I was like, imagine if we had twins, especially if we already had 2 and then you had twins. So then you got 4. And she was like, nah, I don't think I could cope. So why have 3? I don't know. It's 2's easy. When you have 2, it's easy. I feel like 2, you always hear like the one child, and like as they get older, it can be, unless you've got like good friends and stuff around you, and they can go and play with other kids. And I feel like it's a good thing to have a sibling that they can then. And I feel like just from a self-development, like they have to learn to share and they communicate. And I know they can go to nurseries and school like that, but I feel like it is good company for having 2. Why 3? I don't even know if I can say the reason why to have 3.
If anyone's watching the YouTube, the shake of the head.
It's more of the act of what you're doing rather than the outcome.
Right. So you just love the performance. That's
it's all about the performance. Then what comes, it comes. You know what I mean? Like 10 seconds. I still find it. I don't know. I sometimes look at Jamie and be in bed. And I'm like, we do what we do, and then you create this thing. Like it's still every now and then. I'm like, you do
not gonna lie,
and this turns into a baby, which then turns into a personality, that then turns into a stroppy teenager, that then turns into an adult. And you think, all from just doing this one act, this happens. And then like they all look the same. They're all different. Like Lenny's left-footed, right-handed. Lyra's like they look the same, but they're totally different personalities. So it's and I always used to think, when looking back, because I'm one of 3 as well, so that might have played a role as well into it, of being like, well, I'm 1 in 3. And I feel like I was going to say, I can hear Lyra now outside, that I used to look at my siblings, I'd be like, why is you also know my brother Gigi, I'm like, why have we've been brought up in the exact same household with the exact same parents, but we are all completely different. And I used to always think, like, why, you hear stories be like, oh, their child's ringing, then that one's been done for crime, and this one's done that, and like this one's a doctor, and this one's on and it just always used to fascinate me that you're being brought up in the same environment with the same parents, but you're so different, which then leads you on to think about how, and I look at it from, and moving as well, is when the children go to school, because they spend more time at school than they will in your company at home. because you think most of the time they're asleep, and then once they get up to a certain age, you see them in the morning, go to school, come back, then they're like playing Fortnite on PlayStation, then they're playing with toys and stuff like that. And as they get older, so I feel like that the environment they're in, and school plays a massive role in sort of changing that nurturing, because they're spending more time in the school environment than they are in the household once they get to sort of that age where they're at school full time. So I feel like that probably is a key role. So that was one of the things for me as well, where it's like I want to have a better, not that I had a bad life, but how schools and stuff like that, and the environment you're in, they can easily just fall into that trap. And I've always been a firm believer, like, you do not follow someone. Like, this is good, this is bad. If someone's picking on someone, you're not getting involved. You're the one that's going to stick up for this person. So do you
worry?
Like
do you worry about things like that? Quite a lot. Like, what do you worry about as a dad? Are there any key things that you're like?
Key performance indicator as a dad is keeping them alive.
not a key performance indicator. I'm not looking for a KPI. I'm thinking what, you know, if you're lying at home at night, like Len's approaching time where he might go out with his mates, right? And he's probably got a mobile phone at some stage. You know, are there things that you worry about now, and maybe even, you know, stealing from the future slightly, worrying about what they'll turn out like and if they'll actually love you when they're a teenager, or if they won't?
How old is Len? I think
he's nearly 10.
Nearly 10.
He's 10 in November. What was the question? Do I worry?
What do you worry about as a dad? Are there things that you worry about? And it doesn't have to be just about your kids, right? It can be about anything.
Yeah. My thing is making sure they turn out nice human beings.
What's a nice human being?
Not scum.
Okay. But what attributes does a nice human being have?
Just knowing, like, being polite, like having manners, know the difference between like working hard, don't expect things. Even like when he's 10, I've already got the thing of like, he's going to be learning sort of graphic design when he's 10, videography when he's 11. And looking at building actual like life skills, because I think like traditional education is crap.
Yeah.
So for me, I want to give them the best opportunity to do what they want to do in life, and give them life skills that I feel like they don't get. So for me, I'm hard on my kids, because I see like, well, if you act a certain way when you're younger, how are you going to be if you're like this at 8 or 9 and you're showing signs of personality traits that I don't like? I'm like, if you're like that now, what are you going to be like when you're 13, 14, 15, when you're hanging around with people? And like, if you're like that now, so I nip it in the bud. Like, I am a stern dad, as in like, can we swear on this?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I don't take no shit, because I feel like if you let them do it when they're young and they can get away with stuff, how is that going to transition into when they're older and they're not having? I feel like it needs to be thingy from a young age, because if not, that problem could be, they talk to you like that, could be something a hell of a lot worse when they're 14, 15, 16.
There is something Jordan Peterson actually speaks about, where he talks about the idea that you shouldn't allow your children to do things that you'll dislike them for later in life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if they were an adult doing that, then there's some element to not allowing them to continue to do that. Like you say, talking to you in a certain way and behaving in a certain way. I'm kind of curious about how are you then instilling that in your children? So rather than it being rewards and punishment, are there things that you're doing, like being an example or doing certain things a certain way? Like, is there anything that you're doing to help instill that in your children? Do you think, are you conscious of it?
I'll give an example. Like, say Lenny's playing PlayStation and he's on a PlayStation chat, and I know what I don't care about other kids. You're not my kids. My role is to look after you and develop you. I don't care about other people and their kids. So if he's in a party chat and other kids are saying stuff at a young age, and I'm talking like stuff you wouldn't want to hear, I'm like, get off that now. You do not play with that individual ever again. Or if I ever hear him say something that I don't like, then it's turn this off now. You are not playing. Like, this is not right. This is wrong. Why is it wrong? Like, he might say something where, and even from the context, I'd be like, what you just said, this person is it's like little things, like male suicide rates and stuff like that. Some of the stuff kids say stuff, I'm like, if you say something to that person, or other people keep saying something to one, say like one person's not good at Fortnite, and they're like, you're crap, you're this, you're rubbish, you're crap. I'm like, that, you know what happens. Like, with younger kids, and especially males, you think, if the words you say have consequences. Some people take words and like water off a duck's back. Other people don't have that. Like, they will take things to heart. And I'm like, your words and your actions have consequences. You need to know. And my thing is always the worst consequence that it could be. Probably it's not going to happen. Even like them running up and down the stairs. Do not play on the stairs. Stairs are not where you play. Because I'll be like, you will die. Like, you can fall down. Like, that's worst case scenario.
This sounds like Neil's been doing that already, telling the boys and
yeah, I mean,
to not run up and down the stairs.
I think the key thing that Luke's touching on is like telling them why you're giving them into trouble, why it's not a good idea, why you don't speak to people like that, bringing in things like mental health, or you might injure yourself. I think it's a good idea. I think there's probably parents out there that, I don't know, shout and scream at their kids, but are not telling them the consequences of something. So I think that's quite an important thing.
There's part of that as well, I think. You know, we're all from the computer games kind of existed, right? There was Sega Mega Drives and whatnot.
Not like online gaming with chats.
No, there was no online stuff, right? And if we said stuff like your son's either being subjected to or subjecting people to, you know, in the playground you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
You know, so someone would physically, like, if you'd said it to a boy at school, you'd have a fight with them, right? And that violence, to a certain extent, although, you know, part of it I don't really condone, some of it I do condone. I'm indifferent in that situation. But at the end of the day, there's a physical consequence, right? You'll get hurt. Someone will do something. Whereas now, when you're sat in front of a screen and you're shouting these things down a microphone or whatnot, there's not really consequences, is there? Unless you, like someone like you, Luke, your father, steps in and goes, that is not how to behave. You know, that's a kind of interesting difference, isn't it?
I feel like other parents do. Like, our thing has always been, if you play PlayStation, you are near us. Because we know that what other kids will say, like, they're upstairs in their bedroom. Their parents don't care. They're like, just go away, move out of the way. And I think you said, I don't know if you said it earlier, as a dad, I do not care about being liked. All I care about is being respected. And what I want is, I don't care about them liking me now, but then and you might have this as well, when they're my age or slightly younger, or they'll be like, they've lived life longer now, so they'll be like, my dad used to do this, and now I appreciate that he did do that because I am who I am today. So I don't care if they like me now. I don't care if they like me at all. My thing is just having that respect and having them when they're older. And I feel like when I became a dad, I then we are very selfish creatures, especially when we don't have kids. And then when you do become a dad, and again, everyone has different parents. Like, I love my mum to dad to bits, but it's not until you become a dad that you realise how much sacrifice that they did when I used to do karate like 4 times a week, how much money they'd pay for me to do stuff like that. When like, my dad would go to work, he's paint and decorate still, and like, you don't truly respect, because you can't, it's impossible when you're a child. But then when you become a dad, and then I'm taking Lyra's got ballet on Thursday, Lenny's got football Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, then a game on Sunday. So you don't truly respect your parents and the sacrifices they make. If you have good parents, and they have done that, some people have shit parents, and like, they're like, well, I'm never going to be like you when I'm a parent, because I've had I think you could take it 2 ways. You'd be like, I'm going to be a bad parent because my parents were bad, and you just end up being them. Or if you had bad parents, you would go, I'm never going to treat my kids like that. I'm never going to be like that, because I wouldn't want my kids to live that. So yeah, I don't care about I don't care about being liked.
Yeah, Laura's dad said something. My father-in-law said something quite interesting a few years ago when we were in, I think we were in Bali for his like 50th or something. But he said that your parents don't teach you how to be a parent. They actually teach you how not to be a parent. all the things that they perhaps either didn't do or you'd have hoped for or wished for. Your parents generally don't actually teach you because, like you say, we don't know what we're doing. I genuinely have no idea. Like when I remember the first night, I think me and Neil have talked about our first nights when we've taken our little kids home, and you bring them home and you're like, hold on a minute, I've just driven a car with more qualification than I do right now with a baby that's sat in my living room that I now have to take care of. So I guess on that note, I'm kind of interested in what the first night was taking Len home, and you've now got this baby and it's yours and you got to look after it, and you and Jamie are like, what do I do?
Well, I've got a terrible memory, so this is never good. But Jamie went. Her waters broke on the Monday evening. She was pushing for 5.5 hours on Thursday morning. That's how long it took. And he come out on like Thursday morning, like 8:30 in the morning, via emergency C-section. So I think I might have purchased a couple of books beforehand, but I didn't really have any friends. I mean, I don't have a lot of friends anyway, so it's not as if I had friends to be like, oh, what's it like? What about this and that? So I read a few books. Obviously, you speak to your dad and stuff like that. But because she had a C-section, I had a fast-track education on being a dad because I had to do everything. It was, you've literally just been cut open, plus you've been in labour since Monday night and it's Thursday morning. And I was like, well, and at that point, I stayed with her the whole time. I think her waters broke on Monday. We went in and then we ended up going back on the Tuesday morning. So I spent sort of Monday night awake, Tuesday night awake, Wednesday, and then Thursday. And then I think they wouldn't let me stay in the hospital. I nearly had a fight with security guards because Jamie's just been cut open, been in labour for all of that duration. And they're going, you can't stay. I'm like,
yeah.
And like some hospitals are good, some are not so good, but they're all short-staffed. Do you know what I mean? So it's one of those where I'm like, if my child is crying and my partner cannot get out of bed because she's just been in labour for like 4 days and been cut open, who is going to look after my child? Like, who is going to look after my child?
Neil, were you allowed to stay for any years? Because I wasn't.
No, they don't let.
It was like COVID world, weren't you? So you definitely with Lincoln and stuff like that.
Even then, could you? Because I wasn't allowed to stay. I think they had visiting hours, and I think it's different hospitals do that. But when
definitely.
Neil, you've probably got some thoughts on this as well. But it's just when you your first kid and
you got to leave them,
you just leave them like that's horrible, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah. But with the twins, slightly different. We got a private room. I had my own single bed in the room. It's quite nice. So I stayed for a few nights with the singles. But when Isla was born, you just got to leave them. No idea. I think I went to the pub, Gordon, with you that night. When I
think you might have done. Yeah. They obviously give you the 5-star treatment, don't they, Luke, when you're having twins, right? Because they know the shitstorm that's coming.
Yeah, your life's now ruined. Do you know what I mean?
What we'll do is we'll give you a nice little sleepover couch bed thing in the corner, so you can stay.
This
will
will be
nice
the last time you're in the bed on your own. Do you know what I mean? So bringing Lenny back, I just remember, like as you said, you put him in. One's like, how do I put the car seat in? Just little things. Even just like now, obviously Lincoln's 7 months old, Lenny's 9, so it's pretty much like a 9-year gap, and obviously Lyra's coming up to 4. But it's all of those things where you go back on YouTube, you get a new thing, and you're like, how do I fit this car seat in? And then you're putting the car seat in, and then it's like, is the baby, when you're first of all, it's like, is the baby going to be cold? Is the baby too hot? So again, it's going through that. And then it's, how do I get home? Is the baby going to start crying and all this other stuff? So I just remember a lot of, you just have to learn. And like,
just get on with it, don't you? You
just get on with it. And the main thing is like, it's going back to the key performance indicator, as long as they're still alive, do you know what I mean? As long as, and you get to know them. So it's like, you then realize certain cries isn't because they're hungry, it's because they've just pooed or then there's the teething, and then you go through stages, don't they? They go through the stages. I really like them young because I like the feeling of they need me. Like, I need to look after this baby. I need to feed this baby. I need to change this baby's bum. I need to win this baby. And I don't care. Like, I just don't need that much sleep, me as an individual. And I feel like even when I did my bodybuilding prep, what I learned from that is I can take a lot. Like I can handle a lot more than pretty much most people. And I feel like the dad thing would probably, because you just have to adapt, don't you? As in, you still got to get up and still got to go to work. You still got to do things. But then you've also got to wake up at night, feed the baby, change nappies. You've then got to, if they're sick, like, do you know what I mean? So you just end up, your tolerance just builds and builds. And then when you have one, you go to two. It's like, okay, two's easy. Whereas two of us, we can child, not like man mark, we can child mark. And then when you have three, you're like, oh, now I have to play zonal marking because I've got three. And I do feel like the age difference as well. So because Lenny's a good age, he will help out with Lincoln. So obviously with Jamie, over the sickness bug, I'm like, Len, I need you to step up. I'm going to do a podcast now. Mummy's not feeling well. I need you to not be on TikTok. I need you to look after the baby. So again, I feel like there's a fairly good age gap. Lyra, on the other hand, is still very needy.
What's the ages?
So 9, 4, and 7 months.
Wow. Yeah, 4-year-olds are quite.
Well, she's 3. She's like coming up to like when Lincoln was born, she was 3 in a bit. So it's still
how much more relaxed were you as an individual when you had your third one? So imagine taking your first one home, pretty stressed, bit of anxiety. I think by the third,
it's easy work. Next thing you're juggling with them. Do you know what I mean? When you're first doing it, you're like they're so small, and you're like, I mean, Lenny was £8.4, so he was 2 weeks overdue. So it's like if her waters didn't break on the Monday, she was going in on a Tuesday anyway to start it off. So when you, it's like, this ain't my first rodeo. So do you know what I mean? You know what's happening. You know, when they get to this age, we will start smelling a bit more. Their cheeks are red, teething. Cool. Yeah. So you end up knowing what's going to happen. It's just an evolution of that. And what's really weird is Jamie really likes to sleep, and Lyra will go to bed whenever she wants. She could sleep in, like today she woke up at 10 past 10 in the morning.
Wow.
And Lenny is like me. Lincoln, I don't know yet, but it's weird to see like the differences between, as I said, the differences between the children. And just on that, like Lyra's like her mum, Lenny's like me. He could go to bed at 1 a.m. and still get up at like 6:30.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, when you look at the boys, Ben and Lewis, the twins, I find it fascinating how different they are. I mean, they were born at the same time, they've had the same diet, the same food, like it's weaned the same, but they've got completely different taste buds. One's a bit fussier than the other. Completely different personalities. One likes to sleep a little bit longer. One gets more grumpy. Yeah, it's just weird. Like I always thought, when especially talking about kind of fussy kids and fussy eaters, you sometimes blame the adults because maybe they're not giving the right foods. But then you've got one twin that eats anything and everything you put in front of them. You've got the other twin that's a bit fussy. Well, explain that to me. It's weird.
And what you're going to do? Just starve the children?
Yeah, well, exactly.
And it's one of those where I'm like, yeah, you're not a parent, and like, yeah, your kids, like, that might have been fine for you and your children, but again, imagine if you now have my children, and there's always that thing of, you look back, and I suppose sort of answer the question, like the third one as well, is going, don't put the children in the bed. Don't put the children in the bed. Don't just give the baby a milk at night to think, oh, they sleep through longer because they're full. So again, it's looking at previous stuff, and it's a lot of it you can take on and go, as you said earlier with Laura's dad, what not to do. So once you've had like 1 and 2, and then the third one, you've got all this past data to then be able to work out, okay, Lenny didn't sleep all the way through a night until maybe a few months before Lyra was born. Lyra goes into her bed and she's fine. She's like, I'm going in my bed now, and she'll go to sleep. So again, it is using that. They are all different, but then you do have more experience to go like a rock on. Like, don't make it harder than it needs to be.
Yeah, I'm part of that on some of the things that you're kind of doing with kids and how you raise them and whatever else, and it kind of reflects back on my point about the fact that we don't have a clue what the hell we're doing. You know, overall, you're just kind of guessing. But my attitude largely changed from being this kind of like quote unquote single guy or with a girlfriend guy, where I used to be like, oh God, those feral kids running around, or, you know, why can't you just put your kid to bed, or why are you sleeping with them? There's clearly that's the problem, or why are they not eating this thing? And then now I've got a kid, I'm just like, I mean, if the kid is breathing and the kid looks like it's having fun or stuff's happening, like, they're just trying to do their best. Let's be perfectly honest. Like,
just,
you know?
yeah, it's some of the times you do stuff and you know that long term it's not going to be great, but at the time, if they're ill and you've not had any sleep and stuff like that, then it's like, cool, just sleep in bed with me.
That was like our podcast with Ali. We were talking about, like, I think he's reading books on sort of unconditional parenting and all sorts of other things because he has aspirations of having a kid. And I remember Neil was talking about bribing some of his children to do things.
Oh, 100%.
And Ali was like, oh, you know, rewards and punishments and all that kind of thing. It's probably not a good idea to do that with your kid. And I was kind of like, I think I turned around to him in the podcast and I was just like, you know, this is going to sound like a very patronizing parent, but you try it.
Yeah, shut up. Yeah, you try it. And then he'd be like, give him the iPads, give him the sweets. If you do that, I'll buy you V-Bucks, I'll do this, I'll do that. Do you know what I mean? I have times with Lenny, and when he goes football, I'm like, I'm going to give you a rating today. You get like a 9 out of 10. Because that's what they do, you know, like the football premiership, and then they in the newspaper they have their ratings. Like, do that, I'll get you some FIFA points or whatever it would be.
Yeah, like as I said, is it good? Is it bad? Who knows? But it works in the moment.
There is, but you know, there are obviously things that we all do as parents that we know there's like a long-term investment in this kind of thing, you know, taking them to sports and practice and trying to get them to persist on that kind of things to a certain extent, and, you know, persisting with vegetables or trying to get them eating a certain way. But, you know, when you're bloody sleep deprived and you've had a long day at work, like, the last thing you want to have to do is to negotiate. Like, I was having to negotiate with Isla when Neil was down with his daughter visiting me. You know, I was like, her brushing her teeth is probably a very good idea, you know, but I'm trying to help her brush her teeth and she's just refusing. And then I'm like, please don't swallow the toothpaste. She swallows the toothpaste. I've had a long day, Luke. I'm not interested in negotiating with this 7-year-old. She won. I was like, you can do what you like then. I don't
you've
care.
won that she actually did her teeth. Like, that's a big achievement. Like, I just say, I have battles. I must have 50 to 100 battles every single day with my children. Put your clothes on. Put your Lyra, the thing at the moment, her socks, they've got to be a right way. She don't want to walk on the carpet after she's put her socks on because she don't want her socks to go funny. And then, do you know what I mean? So you've got all this. Then it's like, brush your teeth. And then it's like, what colour teeth do we need to have? White like the snow, because if they're white like the snow, then when Father Christmas comes, you'll give you more presents. Wow. Do you know what I mean? Some of this stuff. This is
kind of, you're sort of feeding them things in the immediacy, aren't you? Like, stuff that they know in the near future they'll get a reward from it. Like, telling them that their teeth will rot and people will think they smell and they're horrible and they look bad and they're not going to get a job because they look like they're just an ex-convict and they've come out of jail. You know, they don't care about that. They're just like, I don't want to brush my teeth. But if Santa Claus in 2 months is coming and he sees my bright teeth, then I'm winning.
Or the tooth fairy, you get more money if they're whiter. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean,
so
tonight,
feel free to use it.
On the teeth subject, I was putting Isla to bed, and
mine are all still awake, by the way. Like, they will be awake after I finish this. I don't have a life. I have no time on my own with my partner.
Wow, all mine are sleeping, gone. Anyway, Isla had sweets under her pillow, so I cleaned her teeth. I was putting her to bed, reading her a book, and she looked a bit cheeky. She looked a bit suspicious. And thankfully she didn't hide them. She showed them to me. And I just couldn't believe it, because the amount we drill into her about her teeth, she just doesn't grasp the concept that if she eats these sweeties overnight, it's not going to be great for her teeth. I don't know how you drill something into her.
I mean, at least it wasn't a bag of cocaine or anything, Neil.
No.
True.
That would have been a bit awkward.
I've got a bit of a U-turn for Luke. Talked a bit about it, but I'm interested to see, especially when you've got an older one. So Isla's 7, she's kind of getting exposed to a little bit of social media from her friends, a little bit of talk like roadblocks and all that kind of things.
Yeah.
How do you approach it with Len? How do you approach social media, technology, games?
Yeah, well, Lenny's got over 1,000 followers on TikTok without posting once.
Wow. How?
It's this thing on Grand Theft Auto where there's like a green character and then another character and there's like this thing. So with Lenny's social media, he has his iPad, he doesn't have his phone. He's got a phone, but he doesn't, it's like one, but doesn't have his, like, he can't ring anyone and stuff like that. So with that, it's, I don't have like any, again, like he never consumes really stuff without us being around. So it's looking at that. And multiple times with like Roblox and stuff. I've gone on I've had his headset before. I'm like, if something's off, I'm putting it on. So I'm hearing this stuff. So if it's Roblox or anything else, we will just go through his messages. We say, there's some absolute weirdos on this internet. Like, it's similar thing. Like, if a stranger comes up to you and offers you sweet, scream, punch, run, kick him in the nuts, whatever it is, don't accept it. Unless it's me, mummy, or like nanny and pops or whatever it is, you do not have that. But you see it all the time, don't you? They do like the YouTube videos where they tell the kids and then they do it.
Yeah,
they test them and they do it. So I suppose, yeah, with social media, he doesn't post. So he's not creating TikToks and stuff like that. He just consumes. And then what he does consume, if I hear something that I don't like or see, I'd be like, you're not watching that channel. Like, do not do that. Like that. You're too young for that.
Yeah,
that's the thing we were talking about, Neil, wasn't it? About the whole social media thing. Neil's obviously on the verge of it potentially becoming something that Isla would want to get involved with. And I've kind of taken the stance where you're not going to be able to escape from it, are you? Like, I'm sure Len would.
I think you're doing them a disservice if you do try and stop them.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because in today's age, like, everything's good or bad based on the usage of what it is. So for me, I'm like, I can actually have a conversation with Len and he can tell me what works on TikTok and I can use that for my business. So for me, I feel like it's just, I'm all for like iPad technology, because if we're like, you can't have an iPad, I'm like, well, when they do get to our age and having a business, I feel like you're doing them a disservice. All my kids from this, that, bad it is like Lincoln, not at his age, but by one, they know how to swipe. If they're looking through photos of their thing, they know to move their finger. So they're going to be amazing on Tinder. Do you know what I mean? When they're older. But that's my thing, is looking at.
Hopefully not too amazing, Luke, because you know you're a product of the old Johnson genes.
That's it. But I feel like parents that are like very strict, like, no, they don't have technology and they don't have that. I feel like you're doing them a disservice, because guess what? No one writes by hand anymore, people. Yeah, and it's still skill acquisition of like social media, and social media is one thing, but I feel like as long as it's controlled to a certain degree, it can be beneficial for them and them in the long run, because that's what it's not going away, is it? It's only just going to get more and more.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead right. It's allowing them exposure to it, but then having that kind of visibility of what they're doing.
You got YouTube Kids, Neil. So if you've got that, then there's certain things that they can't. Yeah. So there's certain channels they can't get access to. There's all the parental control and stuff. We've never put like anything in place as such like that. It's just been, if we don't like or hear certain things, where we're like, what
does he have a TV in his room?
He does. It's my gaming monitor, one of them now. But again, he only until recently when we moved, he hadn't before.
Yeah. No, I think probably 10's a good age for that kind of thing. But I mean, I always had friends that are 5 or 6 that have got PS5s and TVs in the room, and that's just mad.
Yeah, just be like, I don't care what your friends have got, because they're not my kids.
Yeah.
Like, it's simple as that. I do not care.
Neil's an employed guy. I'm an employed guy now as well. Yeah. Quite frankly, I've had a good run of self-employed life, but you know, how do you feel about a sort of a self-employed dad versus an employed dad? Would you prefer to be employed? Do you like being self-employed? Do you think there's more risk, less risk? What do you think about it as a dad? How do you think of it as an example to your children? Like, what's your thoughts on self-employed versus employed being a dad?
So I feel like there should be 3 categories: business owner, self-employed, and employed.
Okay, fair enough. Because if you're a business owner, you're employed by your limited company, and
No. I'll break it down
Okay.
as well. So
Okay.
if you're employed, you've got there's pros and cons to everything. Sorry, Siri's just come on there. So if you're employed, you have the holidays, you have the security, you can go to work and shut off. But then some employed positions you can't shut off. So it all depends. Is it like a typical 9 to 5 employed? You do that, you don't have any work to take home. There's good things with that because then you can shut off and then you have no risk. Like you don't have to find work. You've got that. But then you could also say that's not being employed is not secure because they could just sack you or the business go under. So there's always stuff like that. So I feel like employed is good in regards to you know what you're getting every single month. You know how much money you're getting. You can literally work, come back, and family time is family time. Like you can shut off completely. However, being employed, I take my kids to school every single day and I pick them up from school every single day. And I feel like if you asked your kids, would you want more money or stuff like that? As I think most of the things, most kids would be like, looking back, I would just want to spend more time with my dad or my mum and dad. So I feel like employed could work that way, but then it also, you don't have the advantages of taking your kids to school and having that freedom to do stuff like that. Self-employed, again, you've then got it's not consistent. So you don't have consistent. It depends on you as a personality as well. So like if you are very like, I need to know exactly how much money I'm getting per month, I need to be very risk adverse, then probably employed is the way to go. Self-employed, you've got the benefits of self-employed is probably the best option because you can then dictate your times. So self-employed and being good at what you specialize in is probably the best option. Because then you don't have the cost of running a business, like your overheads are really low, and then you are your own boss, so you don't have a salary cap on your head. You can charge more, you can get more clients. There's 3 ways to make more money: get more clients, get them to pay more from an average transaction price, and get them to pay more frequently. So I feel like self-employed would probably be the best bet because you can then work your hours and stuff around the life you want to live. So if you do want to take your kids to school, pick them up, you have that freedom to a certain degree. A business owner, you're probably crazy. I'm saying this now. It is, if you don't have kids, it's so much easier to be self-employed, probably all 3 of those. But from a business owner perspective, it's probably the hardest. Because my outgoings range between 20 to 40k a month. So that's why I put the third category in. Because the self-employed, you don't have that. The business owner, you've got people that work for you. You've got kids I've got to keep my kids alive and fed. I've got to keep my staff fed. And then I've got to run a business.
And then feed yourself and be able to go to Barcelona on a stag do.
And yeah, so my thing, I plenty of times, GG, I thought, why don't I just get rid of PT Collective, just have my personal brand? Like I've got the knowledge, I've got the experience, I've got a personality to be able to build a personal brand. It would be easier to build a personal brand rather than having a business and having all of the overheads. And it still might be quite a possibility that does happen in the future. Because I can tell you right now, if I was self-employed, I'd have a lot more money in my bank right now. However, going back to the statement of, I've not been put on this earth to be content with being average. If I'm going to fucking do something, I'm going to do it. And the point of the business is, yeah, you have more overheads, you have staff, but it has much more potential to be bigger. Yep. Than a one-man band.
Because you're investing money, just, self-employed to a certain degree. This is kind of going off tangent a little bit, but self-employed to a certain degree, you're probably going to be a bit more cash rich, right? Mm-hmm. And in your personal life, you might have more days. You might have a bit more asset. But in a service-based business, which generally what self-employed people will do is, there's a cap on that, right? You can't really earn, there's a certain point you're just not going to earn any more money. You will get to a degree of income. But then as a business owner, 40 grand a month sometimes for you is a lot of money. But then equally, like I think Ali's overheads are about 1.2 or 1.3 million a year. But then if your business is doing well and it's very profitable, his turnover this year will be $5 million with a 60% gross margin. So then it just kind of, it all depends really. But I do think
I feel like it depends on the personality as well.
Yeah, it does.
Because I look back at it and I just go, what's the worst thing that happens? And I've always said, I feel like where my strengths are, I've got plenty of weaknesses. But because I've built this knowledge over time and this experience, my worst thing that could happen could probably be better than what I'm currently on. Would be better than where I'm currently at. Not where the future me wants to go. But I know that the worst thing that could happen is I fold PT Collective and I just go back to just being Luke Johson. I have like a VA, one member of staff or whatever it is, and I'm making more money than what I'm currently am.
Yeah, and you've got Joe editing your videos. That's it.
So that's the thing. Like my worst case, like my fallback is good life. My current life is not great life. I'm in building life, but my future, this business model or vehicle path that I am currently on, gives me the opportunity to then be able to sell a business for 10 million. So I'm not looking. I don't mind like having rough times now, because my thing is I'm not trying to make money today. I'm trying to set up my family and stuff like that 5, 10, 15, 20 years time. I don't care about winning the battle as such, winning the war. My thing is I'm not a person, this is just a plain ass white t-shirt. I don't care about these people on Instagram and they've got these cars and stuff like that. When I was younger and I was working, I was like, I'm going to have an Aston Martin by the time I'm 35. I want the biggest car possible so the kids can be so far back I don't hear them. And I can't do that in an Aston Martin. So again, your life changes, kids change your life. And I've always said, you can't imagine your life without your kids now because you love them dearly. But you 100% can remember your life without them. Do you know what I mean? So now you've got them, you can't think of anything, like if your kids went, you couldn't think of anything worse. But you can easily think back to when you didn't have kids of how your life would be. And that's why I'm saying, like, if I didn't have kids, the way I am as a person, I would work non-stop every single day. I'd have no distractions. My business would be a further ahead than where it currently is. But in life, there's always, there's always a give and take. Like something is all there. If you do something else has to give. So if you have kids, it just is what it is. Like, find me a parent that has kids when they're in the stage of growing a business, not having an established business already. Find me someone that says, by having kids while I'm trying to build a business is better than if I didn't have kids.
Words of wisdom from Luke Johson on the Developing Dads podcast.
Developing Dads podcast.
We're now approaching the hour. We'll try and cap it there. Plus, I finished work quite late, so it's now 9 p.m. I still haven't had my dinner.
Me neither.
So I'm quite peckish. And neither, exactly, right? So the dads in the world got to eat. So I think there's two things we'll finish on. The first one is obviously Neil's southeast accent with apples and pears, and he also has to tell us what it means, right, Neil? The mic is over to you.
Oh. For those watching on YouTube, you should see Gordon's face. Apples and pears.
Not bad. Not bad, that, Luke.
Did you actually try then, or was you just saying apple and pears? I didn't.
Apples and pears.
And what's it mean?
No idea.
Gordon?
Stairs.
Apple and pears, stairs. Cockney rhyme.
That's it.
I know what Cockney rhyme is, but I didn't know it was for stairs.
You didn't know?
Well,
there you go.
You didn't know what Cockney rhyme was because apple and pears is Cockney rhyme.
And that's the most used Cockney rhyme saying.
And then the last one, I don't know if we're going to make this a tradition, Neil, but maybe we should. Are there any parting words of wisdom, Luke, that you can think of? Short and sweet.
Is it for dads?
Anything, mate. I mean, it can be for your pet gerbil.
Well, no, it's the Developing Dads podcast, so anyone that's listened to this podcast that isn't a dad, you're probably in the wrong place, so go and listen to something else. For dads, just that you'll get a lot of things wrong, but as long as you're trying to get a lot of things right at the same time, then I think you're doing a good job, and don't be hard on yourself.
Absolutely fair. Neil, do you want to close us out? Because I introduced the past 2 podcasts. You want to do all the sign up here to go there?
You're keeping tracks, Gordon. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. All 2 of you. Hopefully you've made it to the end and enjoyed my Cockney rhyme. Episode 20, I don't know if we've thought of episode 20 yet. What's that going to be? We've got the jobs that we've done over the years, Neil. What jobs we've had was going to be episode number 20. I thought it would be quite good. Nice. Sounds good. Look forward to that in episode 20. And if you haven't checked us out already, look for us on Instagram, YouTube, and maybe a new website coming soon with Developing Dads. Excellent. Well, Luke, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully you don't throw up later, because obviously there's a bit of a sickness bug going around. Neil's still alive. He hasn't had any ambulances arrive outside his house because he's known for that during medical emergencies. Once it's happened, Gordon. Yeah. So if you but out of like 18 episodes prior to that, it's like less than 1 in 20 chance that it's going to happen. Yeah, he's doing all right. So anyway, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Thanks, Luke. Good catch up. Thanks. Bye. Cheers.